Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to talk about Israel's current main battle tank, the Merkava. Now there are four variants of the Merkava. You've got the Mark 1, the Mark 2, the Mark 3, and I think you can guess, obviously the Mark 10. No, I'm kidding, the Mark 4. Now you may wonder, Israel's a pretty small country. Why would it need its own main battle tank? Well, they were going to buy from Britain. They were going to buy chieftains in the 60s, but the deal with the plan of mass producing them in Israel. But the deal fell through because at the time, Britain was more famous to Jordan, which I'm pretty sure at the time was one of Israel's main enemies. And so the deal fell through, and Israel didn't get any chieftains. So they had to produce their own tank, which led to the Mark 1. And so the picture that you saw at the beginning was a picture of the Merkava Mark 1. Now, this mounted a 105mm cannon. At the time, this was a pretty forward-thinking tank. It had the door in the rear, and so it was able to carry troops, in theory. And they were able to get out of the back of the tank and use it as cover. Now, IMI manufacturers contributed the 105 main gun and their ammunition. The design of the Merkava involved one machine gun on top and in the center, and two other machine guns right outside the hatches. Now, for the center machine gun that was mounted right above the cannon, someone would have to get out and use it. Now, the Merkava was a forward-thinking tank for another reason. It has had its engine in the front since its development. This leads to a little bit of extra armor from the engine. And since engines can be quite beefy, especially tank engines, this is actually kind of helpful. I mean, sure, if it takes a severe enough hit, it's probably not going to be able to move and it's going to have to be recovered by its armored recovery variant. But it would protect the crew. So the main armament of the Mark IV, which is the main tank I'll be talking about, is the 120mm or 4.7 inch for you people still living in the interwar era, is the 120mm MG-253 smoothbore gun capable of firing the Lahat anti-tank guided missile. It also has a Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher and internal mortars and 12 smoke grenade launchers. It mounts a 1,500 power diesel engine, a turbocharged diesel engine at that, and it can carry 48 rounds. It uses the helical spring suspension type. I don't actually know much about this suspension type, and so I look forward to learning more about this. Yeah, I really want to learn about that suspension type. Pros and cons. It has a crew of 4, the commander, driver, gunner, and loader, and it can carry a maximum of 6 passengers. Now, I think that's in addition to the crew, but it might just be 2 random guys with RPGs. You know, it was designed by Mantak. It's also being manufactured by Mantak. If you live in Israel, it'll cost you about $3.5 million. If you don't, you can buy this thing for $4.5 million. Just for reference, the Abrams is around $7 million. So yeah. Now, are you ready for the wars that this thing is served in? I'm going to list them off kind of quickly, so listen carefully. The 1982 Lebanon War, the South Lebanon conflict, the First Intifada and the Second Intifada, the 2006 Lebanon War, the Gaza War, Operation Pillar of Defense, and Operation Protective Edge. It's been serving since 1979, and 250 Mark 1s have been produced. We have 580 Mark 2s in circulation, 780 Mark 3s, and 660 Mark 4s currently exist. Now, 360 of those Mark 4s are currently in service. 300 are in the process of delivery. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, like I was talking about, there are multiple variants of the Merkavas. You have the Mark II-B. It has some unspecified updates to the fire control system. Oh, speaking of unspecified, let's talk about the armor. Now, the armor is classified, but what we know is that it's composite armor and sloped, and that it has a modular design. We don't know anything else about it. And if world governments don't know much about it, what's a random guy on YouTube gonna know about it? You know? It has a power to weight ratio of 23 horsepower to ton and a payload capacity of 48 rounds. I think I talked about this. And used the Renk RK325 transmission. It can carry 1,400 liters, which will take it 310 miles. Or I should say 500 kilometers, and for you Americans, 310 miles. Now, the maximum speed on a road is around 40 miles an hour, and the maximum speed off of one is 34 miles per hour. That's pretty cool. And they have a Merkava Mark 1 at the Military Museum in the Czech Republic. That's also pretty cool. There's also the Merkava Mark 2C. It has more armor on the top of the turret, and the 2D. It has modular composite armor on the chassis and turret, and that allows for the rapid replacement of damaged armor, meaning that you can get that tank back into the fight before your enemy can get their damaged tank back into the fight, because you know that they're going to just keep churning out tanks to fight yours. Now, let's move on to the Merkava Mark III. Let's move on from the 70s to the 80s. It was in production until 2003 and in service until 2016. Or actually, no, it's still in service and the most numerous tank in IDF frontline service. Compared to the Mark II, it's got some upgrades to the drivetrain, powertrain, and armament. Electronic systems. But the most important upgrade to this was the IMI 120mm. This gun and a more powerful engine increases the weight to 65 tons. But this means that it can go at 37 miles an hour and it has better firepower. It has a two-way telephone for secure communications. It has upgraded ammo to minimize the ammo cook-off, meaning I think that means if your ammo is hit, it won't flame you, you know? And it got some laser designators and got the Kasag modular armor system for rapid replacement. And you can replace old armor. Now it also got the BAS system, and this upgraded it with NBC, or nuclear biological chemical protection systems, meaning if if a city gets nuked, you can have Merkavas going through it safely, deploying squads of infantry whenever necessary. It also got improvements in ballistic protection and air conditioning. It also has modular composite armor on the chassis and turret. And the last generation of the Mark III class was the Mark III-D, which included several components, including stuff that was going to be put on the Mark IV. Sorry, something just fell. It had strengthened tracks and an overhead weapons station. And the Merkava Mark IV is an upgraded version of the Mark III. What it got was a trophy active protection system, and it got this kind of cool thing. So, the IDF is apparently beginning trials of Elbit's Iron Vision, which is a helmet-mounted display for tanks. Apparently, it's for the crew, and it's a 360 display panel. From what I gather, it's if you look at Iron Man's armor and his helmet, from what I gather, it's basically that. So that's pretty cool. And I forgot what I was gonna say. In the Lebanon War, there were 5 destroyed. Here's some more. So the Merkava LIC was converted for urban warfare. LIC stands for Low Intensity Conflict, which would be a lot of what the US has been doing in the Middle East, sort of against the Taliban. So I'm not saying that's not a conflict. I'm just saying that it's compared to Russia, like a war against a developed nation. So this would be a low intensity conflict. It got a 12.7 millimeter coaxial machine gun. It enables the crew to lay down some fire. So yeah. There's also the Merkava tankbulance. Yeah, you heard that right. They were fitted with full medical ambulance capabilities while retaining their armament. So basically, if you are a casualty on an Israeli battlefield, you might get picked up by a Merkava and treated in that. There are also some howitzer variants that just carry very large 150 millimeter guns. And that's really it for today. I didn't want a hugely long video. Jesus Christ, I think this was really long. As always, my socials are down in the description, and if you play War Thunder, you can find me in game under the username mellowpanzer693. This is also my gamer tag, so you can find me on Xbox Live too. As always, have a fantastic week, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Have a good one.